All right. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Happy Friday. We'll go ahead and get started here. If you got your questions, you can post them. It should be below the video if you're on a smaller screen like a phone. If you're on a larger screen like a computer, it should be to the right of the video. All right. So let's see if we got any questions here. All right. So looking in here, I don't have any new questions. Let me refresh this just to make sure. Make sure we got the latest and greatest in here. Yeah, so no new questions at the moment. If you're just jumping on here, ask a question. We'll get it answered here pretty quickly. May even be able to give you a very thorough answer uh, because we don't have any questions at the moment. So yeah, let's see here. Since we don't have any questions at the moment, then what I will do is, bear with me here, I will answer some questions from past office hours. And we will just keep doing that until we have a new question to ask. All right. So Nick B says, do you have any recommendations to speed up play? Yeah, I can definitely give you some recommendations there. So one I would say is to develop a routine, have an idea of what you're going to do. So basically, I'll kind of go over a basic routine with you here. So, this would be like for an approach shot, and you can modify this kind of routine for putting, for a drive, for a chip, for any of these things. There's always going to be some sort of routine. I won't be able to go through a routine for all of those, but it's all going to be very similar to this. So keep that in mind. So let's just say, your basic approach shot here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to assess the lie. That's going to tell me what kind of shot I can hit, right? Because if you have a bad lie, you may not be able to hit a certain shot. So let's say that your ball's buried in the rough, right? And you have a big tree in front of you. Well, it's going to be hard to get up over that tree, right? So it would be probably very risky as well. So, if I had a ball where the ball was sitting up on the grass, like it's on a tee, well, yeah, that would be much easier to get up over that tree, right? So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to assess the lie. I'm going to get the yardage. Then I'm going to start taking a look at the environment, right? Looking at the wind. I'm looking at, am I hitting downhill, uphill, level, right? Because I need to kind of adjust my yardage based on that. Downwind, into the wind, crosswind, all that stuff. So I'm kind of basically going through these things. And then once I kind of have the idea of what kind of shot I'm going to hit, the yardage, and I pick my target and all that stuff, I'm going to start visualizing the shot. So what I like to do is I like to get behind the ball and really visualize exactly how that ball is going to fly in the air. And then once I have that in my mind, then I'm going to walk into the shot. And what I like to do for targets is I like to use intermediate targets. So basically what I'll do is I'll get behind the ball and I'll take my club and I'll hold it straight up and down like this. And with whatever my target is, where I want, essentially where I want this ball to start, keep in mind the target's not always the flag stick. In fact, it almost always isn't the flag stick. That's another conversation for another day. But I'm picking my target, and what I like to do is I like to pick a target out in front, and I'll use the club to kind of line that up, right? And then once I have that lined up, I'm going to take my club, I'm going to line up to the intermediate target, right? And what I like to do is I like to do a look, right? I'm doing my waggling, I'm doing my look, I'm visualizing the shot. Then I look back down, and then once I put the club down, I go, right? Now, one thing that I do see often that can really, really slow down play, and this is something that I see, with some of my friends sometimes when I play golf, is they'll take like 3 practice swings before they hit the ball. And for a beginner, that might somewhat be necessary. If you're just kind of getting into it, maybe not that many. I would probably do one. If it was a really bad one, I might do another one, right? But for the most part, I just don't do. If you're a somewhat experienced golfer, you've been playing golf for a little while, I don't think practice swings are necessary. The only time I would really take a practice swing would be if I've been waiting and it's just to get loose, or if it's like a gauged shot, meaning I'm not hitting the full distance. So I'm just trying to get a feel for how far I want to bring this club back to match the distance. So like a pitch shot, a chip shot, something like that. Putting, I don't take a practice stroke. I just kind of do it all on feel. So practice swings can definitely take a long time. So develop a routine, and in the beginning you're going to be slow with your routine, but the more you do it, the faster it's going to get. It's like any routine that you have, right? Driving a car, right? In the beginning, you got into the car. It took you a little while to check the mirrors and put the seat, make sure everything was in place, and then you drive for a little while, and then eventually it's like you get in the car, you don't even think about it, you just do all those things and you do it very quickly, right? It's the same thing with the routine. So develop a routine. Another thing I would say is be ready to hit. I think that when I play with people that are slow, a lot of times they're just not ready to hit the ball. They haven't done anything yet. They're just kind of standing there watching everybody else hit, and then, not saying that this is what you're doing. I'm just saying that this is just what I've noticed of people who play slow, right? They kind of watch everybody hit, and then it's like, hey man, it's your turn to hit. It's like, oh, and then they start going through their routine at that point. If you're playing with other people, if it's not your turn to hit, just go through your routine. So that way, when it is your turn to hit, you're ready and you can just step into it and go. Another thing would be playing ready golf. I'm all about respect and honor and and all that stuff, but it's golf. You know what I mean? Even when I played college golf, it was always ready golf. We tried to go by, hey, you're out, go ahead. But if it's like, I'm seeing that he's out and I'm ready, I might say, hey, you mind if I go ahead? That gives them a little bit more time, so that way they don't feel rushed. A lot of times they don't mind that. If they're in a situation, maybe they're in a sticky situation that takes a little bit more time to kind of think through exactly what they need to do. Maybe I have a very straightforward shot that doesn't require much thought, and I can just step into it and do it. So that would be one, play ready golf, be ready to hit when it's your turn. Another thing would be, don't look for balls too long. Oftentimes when I see people play slow, they're just looking for balls forever. So help, and also if you're playing with somebody and they're looking for, help them look for a ball. That'll help you speed up play. You'll find it much faster if you do. And it also will help you to, like, hey, we've been looking, because it's like 3 minutes that you have to look for a ball. You can be like, it's, probably just need to drop one. Sorry, we looked for it. The ball's gone. I know it sucks to lose a ball, but if you can't find it, it's gone. So you just got to take your stroke or whatever you're doing in your game and move on. That's one thing that I often see, people who take a long time, they're looking for balls forever. One thing to keep in mind is if you are a higher handicap golfer, just by nature, you're going to play slower for lots of reasons. One, you're taking more shots, right? So that's going to make you play slower. You're also going to be hitting more errant shots that might require a little bit more looking for the ball. So I understand there's definitely going to be slow play out there. And if you are a higher handicap golfer, just be aware of people that are behind you or whatever, and just let them play through. It's just part of it. Eventually you're going to get better, and you're not going to hit as many shots, and you're not going to have to look for as many balls, and you're not going to be in that position. But when you're a higher handicap golfer, you're going to tend to be in that position where you need to let people play through quite a bit. So those would be kind of the main things. I think if you stick to those things, you're ready to hit. You develop a routine. You play ready golf. You don't spend too much time hitting balls. I think if you stick to those things, you're definitely going to be able to speed up play, for yourself. And a lot of times it's a culmination of those things, right? You might look for a golf ball a little bit too long, 5-6 minutes, right? Every time, or maybe you're not quite ready to hit, or maybe you're always kind of waiting on the person who's out, right? Instead of just playing ready golf, right? Those things kind of add up over time, over the course of a round, and it can turn, a 3.5 hour round into a 4.5 hour round, right? So If you stick to those things, I think you'll definitely be able to speed up your play. All right, let's keep going here. I got plenty of time here. Got about 50 minutes left here. I'll stay on here till noon. If anybody has any more questions, no worries. If not, no big deal at all. So let's keep going here. I think I got another question here we can do. So Larry L says, can you do the turn the doorknob move to shallow the club in the backswing? So for those of you who aren't familiar with what that is, let me turn the page back here. That's this right here. So turning the doorknob is this. So if I turn a doorknob to the right, I'm going like that with my forearm, right? So it's called pronation, and supination is essentially what it is. So pronation is going to be, supination is going to be outward rotation. Pronation is going to be inward rotation. I might have those flipped apart. Either way, if we turn a doorknob to the right, one of the wrists is doing pronation, one of them is doing supination. Sometimes I get them mixed up. I believe pronation is inward rotation, supination is outward rotation. So pronation would be turning a doorknob to the left with my right hand. Supination would be turning a doorknob to the right with my right hand. So if I turn a doorknob to the right, you can see how that can help you to shallow out the club. Now, can you do it in the backswing? Technically, you can, but typically it does lead to issues. There are high-level players that do the turning the doorknob move in the backswing, but these are kind of special cases. So one would be like a John Rahm. So John Rahm, when he brings this club back, right, he turns that doorknob to the right, and when he gets up to the top, he has this club very, very laid off, right? It's actually way too shallow, right? And then what he does is he actually steepens the club a little bit in the downswing, but it still remains shallow. So what that means is, what shallow actually means is it means that the mass of the club head is trailing the direction of the force of my hands, right? So if I have it super shallow, meaning it's way behind the force of my hands, and then I actually steepen it and it stays behind the force of my the direction of the force of my hands, it's still shallow, even though it's moving towards steepening, right? So there are a handful of players that do it this way. John Rahm, Daniel Berger, Ricky Fowler used to do it that way. He's kind of changed his swing a little bit, but when he got top 5 in all the majors that one year, can't remember exactly what year that was, but when he did that, he was steepening a little bit in the downswing, but they're all keeping it shallow. So technically you can, but if you do, what you have to do is you have to really kind of over shallow it and then not over steepen it in the downswing. So it's a little bit of a slippery slope. I generally do not recommend doing that. What I recommend most people do is to actually get the club to work towards shallowing in the downswing. So what that would look like is I might have this club kind of go a little bit more upward, right? So at lead arm parallel, the shaft angle would be more steeper, and then that will give me room to be able to get it to shallow. And you can see, what am I doing in that transition, right? I'm turning that doorknob to the right, right? And that's what most players do. Most players are getting that club a little bit steeper in the backswing. And then in transition, they do that turning of the doorknob to the right. And that gets the club to shallow and get behind and work through. So generally, that's what I recommend. Technically, you can do the turning of the doorknob to the right and then actually turn the doorknob to the left a little bit in the downswing. As long as you're still keeping it shallow, you can still do that. But like I said, it's a slippery slope. Generally, I recommend most golfers do it in the transition and in the start of the downswing, because that's going to get all the momentum kind of working in the right direction to make it work towards shallowing. When you work away from shallowing, it tends to be a slippery slope, because it's easy. It can be easy to overdo it, right? So if we have the move where we shallow it in the transition, it's generally going to be a lot easier and better for most players. But that's a good question. Thanks for the question there. All right, let's keep going here. So if you got questions, again, if you're just jumping on here, I'm just waiting for questions to be asked. We don't have any questions so far, so I'm just answering some questions from past office hours. So if you got questions, we'll definitely be able to answer them. All right, so RC asks, would setting up with the hands lower with a driver promote a higher launch? Not necessarily. So let's talk about what would promote a higher launch. More loft would promote a higher launch. So, if you are currently, a lot of these drivers are adjustable. If you currently have a 9-degree driver and you adjust it to 11, that will most likely raise the launch for you. Because if you make the same swing with a 9-degree driver or make a swing with a 9-degree driver and then make the exact same swing with 11-degree driver, it's going to launch a little bit higher, right? So that would do it. Releasing the club a little bit earlier, right? So if you're coming in with a lot of shaft lean with the driver, and then you kind of release it a little bit more and basically have little to no shaft lean, that would launch it a little bit higher. Hitting up on the ball will launch it higher, increasing your angle of attack. So, having the hands lower at address, is it going to make you do any of those things? It's possible. I don't see a strong connection, though, to be honest. Now, that's not to say that if you have your hands lower at address that you do get that to happen. But basically getting your hands lower at address for some reason or another, again, I don't see a strong connection to it. But, for some reason or another is getting you to either add more loft or hit more up on it, or possibly hit it higher on the face. That can also increase the launch, because when you hit it higher on the face, you may not realize this, but there's more loft higher on the face, right? So when you get a 9-degree driver, let's say, that's the middle of the face, right? Driver club faces are domed, so when you go higher on the face, there's going to be a little bit more loft here. So if it's 9 degrees here, it might be 12 degrees at the top of the face, right? So that can help you to add the launch. And then also, because of twisting of the face, when you hit it higher on the face will actually twist like that, and that will make the ball launch a little bit higher. Now, we don't want to get too high on the face, because if you get too high on the face, you tend to lose some ball speed, and the ball won't go quite as far. But generally, if you go about a 1/4 inch above the direct center middle of the face, that's typically, you're not going to lose any ball speed, and you're going to get a little higher launch on that as well. So, like I said, does lowering your hands at address promote a higher launch? It's possible that it could, but it may for you, but it may not for others. But I will say that if it is for you, then one of those things is happening, right? It's either promoting adding more loft at impact, right? Maybe releasing the club a little bit earlier. It might be promoting a higher strike on the face. It might be promoting a more upward angle of attack. It's possible that it could. Like I said, I don't see a direct connection to that typically. When I tell people, or when people ask me how they can, get their drives to go higher, or launch higher, then I typically don't tell them to lower their hands at address. I typically tell them, well, hey, let's tee the ball a little bit higher. Let's get the ball a little bit more forward in the stance. That's going to promote a little bit more of an upward angle of attack. If they are someone that's coming in and they have shaft lean like this, what I would say is I would give them two options, right? Or they can do a little bit of both. One would be use a higher lofted driver, right? A lot of people are afraid of these higher lofted drivers, and I understand why. a lot of people think anyway, that no pros use, 12-degree driver, but you would actually be wrong on that. John Rahm actually uses a higher lofted driver. I don't know if it's exactly 12 degrees, but it's higher lofted. Dustin Johnson also uses a higher lofted driver, and the reason why is because they have a lot of shaft lean at impact with their driver. And if they use like a 9-degree driver or something, they would launch it way too low, right? So when they're coming in, Dustin Johnson and John Rahm, they kind of look like this, right? They have a lot more shaft lean than what most tour players have. So they're going to have a little more loft. So the option would be, hey, if you have a lot of shaft lean, then you can use a higher lofted driver. Like I said, a lot of these drivers are adjustable. You can just make that adjustment. Or you can release that club a little bit earlier, reduce the amount of shaft lean that you have at impact. If you're hitting it too high, or if you want to hit it higher, right, you can release it a little bit earlier if you want to hit it higher. Teeing the ball higher and more forward, that's going to promote more of an upward angle attack that will help you to hit it higher. We've been talking about launching the ball higher. So what launching is basically, launch angle is the angle that the ball is launching at relative to the horizon, right? That has a strong influence on how high the ball goes, or, AKA apex is often what it's called. So basically the maximum height that the ball goes. But speed is a big element in that as well. So if I have higher club head speed, compared to the same launch angle of a shot, right, I'm going to actually get the ball to go a little bit higher because I'm giving the ball more energy on that same launch angle. So getting more club head speed would also help you to launch the ball higher. So you might be, putting the hands lower at address. It's possible that could be getting you more club head speed and not necessarily making you launch it higher, but maybe you're hitting it at the same launch, but it's going higher because you're getting more speed. Again, I don't really see a direct connection with that. Typically, standing a little bit taller, I have found can help to get a little bit more club head speed. So, like I said, it's not a direct connection. It's possible that it can for you, but understand that if the ball's going higher, what's happening is you're either adding more loft, you're increasing your angle of attack, you're hitting it higher on the face, or you might be launching at the same angle but hitting it with more speed that makes it go higher, right? So, and if you're looking to increase your club head speed, what I highly recommend is our 20-minute distance fix course. This is an awesome course, helped a lot of people gain club head speed and ultimately gain distance. Really, really great program. It's a 3-week program, but it's something that you can do over and over and over and over again. Now, obviously, probably the second time you go through, it's not going to be as good as the first time. Every mile per hour, what I have found typically after you've kind of gained your first 10 miles per hour, if you're completely untrained, every mile per hour is a little bit more difficult to gain. You're going to get it little by little. So a lot of times you'll get a lot in the beginning because you're getting all the low-hanging fruit stuff. But then it's like it takes a little by little after that. So if you want to check out the 20-minute distance fix course, you can click the instruction tab at the top of the screen, and then that will drop down a menu, and you'll find the 20-minute distance fix from that menu. All right, let's keep it going here. It doesn't look like we have any new questions as of yet. No worries. Sorry, I just want to make a quick note. All right. So DNC says, do you have a recommendations on how to mix in or incorporate random practice while practicing? Yeah. So let's talk about random practice and exactly what that is. So what random practice is just having some sort of variant on every shot. So not doing the same thing over and over and over. So the benefit of this is it really, really increases your learning, right? And it really, really increases your ability to take the range game to the golf course, right? Because oftentimes when I see people at the driving range, they're hitting the same club over and over and over again to the same target, right? And then they go out on the course and it's like, well, why can't I hit it as well as I hit it on the range? Well, it's because it's much more difficult to do that, right? When you're on the range and you're hitting off maybe you're hitting off of a mat, you're hitting off a perfect lie every time, you're hitting the same club over and over. There's hardly any time between shots, so you can really kind of get in a groove and get in a rhythm. You're hitting to the same target, right? There's less distractions. There's no pressure. There's lots and lots of reasons why you're not going to hit it as well on the course as you do on the range, right? In general, on average. So if you do random kind of practice, then it can really help you to be able to take some of that range game to the course. And you're going to notice when you do random practice that your performance is likely going to lower, just like it would on the golf course, right? Because you're not getting in a rhythm and a groove and hitting the same club over and over the same target. So I can go over a couple random practice things that I like to do. So one would be playing the golf course on the range. This is one of my favorite things to do because it can help you to prepare to play a tournament or something like that. It can prepare you to play better on the course that maybe you play quite a bit. You can even play the same hole over and over and over. It's still going to be random because you're going to be hitting different shots at every time. So that's all random needs to be. Random doesn't technically have to be exactly like random. It's better if it is, but it just means that you're varying something every single time, right? So simple, and I'll go over the couple of my favorite random practice things here in a minute. But simple random practice would be, basically just hitting a different club every single time, right? So maybe hit a ball with a wedge. Then you grab your 7-iron, hit a ball with that. Then you grab your driver, hit a ball with that. Then you grab your hybrid, hit a ball. You're switching clubs every single time. Random could be switching your target every single time, right? So maybe I hit to this target over here, and then I hit to this target over here, and then I hit to that target over there, right? You could use the same club every time, but you're varying where you're hitting it every time. You could change ball flights, right? You could hit a draw, then hit a fade, then hit a straight one, then hit a low one, then hit a high one, right? You can vary your what that is. And it's different every single time. So it's going to help you to increase your learning. And again, you can imagine if you were to hit 10 low shots in a row, well, some of those are going to be pretty good, right? But if you hit a bunch of shots and then you hit a low shot and then you hit a bunch more shots and then you hit a low shot, all those low shots are probably not going to perform quite as well because you're not getting in a groove doing it over and over and over again. So yeah, those would be like simple, really, really simple ways to do kind of random practice. But like I said, playing the course on the range is a great one. So what that could be is you could do 9 holes, and basically I would do a course that pretty well. If you don't know a course very well and you're trying to prepare to play a course, what you can do is you can use there's plenty of apps out there, like GPS apps, that will show you kind of like the Google Earth layout of the hole and give you like the yardages and all that stuff. So you can kind of look at that and then look at, okay, well, my target on this hole would be right here, and so on and so forth, right? And it'll tell you the yardage. And let's say I'm playing the first hole, and of course I play fair often amount of time, Legacy Club here near the Orlando area, and the first hole is, I can't remember exactly what the yardage is. I think it's 400 some yards. It's a dog leg to the left. There's out of bounds left, and then there's a bunker to the right. usually, depending on the tees that I play, let's say I'm playing the tips, I'm gonna hit a driver here. So I have an idea of, okay, the bunker is right there. I can say that the bunker is the edge of that sign, and then the OB is the edge of that sign, or whatever it might be. And then you're visualizing where you're going to hit it. You go through your routine, you execute the shot, and let's say you hit a great shot, and you're going to have like a wedge in or whatever. Then you go through the same thing. You switch to a wedge. With this, I would just imagine all the pins are in the middle. You can imagine something different if you want. It's up to you. But the cool part about this is you make all the putts, right? So you can kind of see how well you do, and you can actually have a score. It's kind of fun because you can be like, oh, I shot 7 under, on that 9 because I hit 7 greens or whatever it might be, right? So that would be a fun way to do it. One also random practice that I like to do is with wedge play. So as we know, for dialing in the wedges, random practice is one of the best things that you can do. So there's 2 ways you can do it. You can have some sort of digital randomization. There are apps out there that you can tell it, hey, give me a random number in this range, and it will generate that for you, right? You can there's launch monitors that will do this for you, right? And tell you. I know SkyTrack has a mode where you can tell it to give you a random yardage in a certain range, and it will do that. You don't have to go the digital route. You can also use playing cards, right? So you can bring a deck of cards. You draw. I would take all the face cards out of there. And basically, you could take the 2s out too. But basically, what it would be is, I would have 3 through 10 in there. And if you draw, and you could keep the face cards, you could say a jack is 110 and a queen is 120 if you want to have a wider range. But generally, when I do it, I'm doing it up to 100 yards. So what I would do is I would draw a card, and if I drew a 3, I'm going to try to hit a 30-yard shot, right? If I draw a 5, I'm going to hit a 50-yard shot. And what you can also do is you could say the red cards are going to be the number +0, right? And then the black cards might be the number +5. So if you draw a red 5, that'd be 50. A black 5 would be 55, right? So, and you could basically, you're going to hit all those yardages for, in 5 yard increments from 30 to 100 if you do it that way. And it really, really helps you to be able to you got to hit a different shot every single time. And that's truly random. That's as random as it gets. And I'm telling you, you get good at doing that, you're going to really be able to dial in your wedges. So that's one of my favorite random practice ones. And you can be creative. And I highly recommend that everyone kind of practice this way to a certain extent, because if you do the same thing over and over and over again, your skill level, your learning isn't going to go up, right? Your performance is probably going to be great and you're going to be happy with that, but that's not going to translate as much to the golf course for a lot of reasons that we mentioned before. So this reminds me of a study that they did on free throw shooters, and I'm just paraphrasing this study. So if you know the study really, really well, I'm just paraphrasing it. I might get some of these things wrong, but I'm going to get the general parts of it correct. So basically, they had free throw shooters. They measured their initial free throw percentage, and then they split them up into 2 groups. One group shot free throws from the same spot over and over, just like you would think. And this is what would be referred to as block practice, where essentially you're trying to do the same thing over and over and over again, right? So that's what the first group did. The second group, they shot from different places. So they would shoot it from the normal place. They would shoot it from the right, from the left, in front, and from behind. So they varied where they shot the free throw every single time. And then after they shot the same number of free throws, practice free throws, right? And then afterwards, they measured them again to see if they improved. Well, the group that shot from the same place over and over and over, they did improve, but they only improved by 1%. The free throw shooters that varied what they did, right, shot from different places every time, they increased by 11%. And what it shows you is that your learning raises when you are doing something different every single time. There's lots and lots of studies out there that have shown this. So I definitely recommend that, as a part of your drills, if you're creating drills for yourself to help you to improve, your golf game, non-technical drills, but like drills where you're focusing on performance, right, and doing better, I highly recommend having some variable in there, because if you do the same thing over and over and over again, there's a place, in time for that, but it's not really going to help you to learn it quite as much, and your improvement isn't going to go quite as much. So definitely highly recommend incorporating random practice. And if you are familiar with our ball striking masterclass course, that's a lot of what we do in there. So if you want to kind of learn more about how to practice and get better, I highly recommend doing our ball striking masterclass. We don't have it open right now, but be on the lookout in your email. Every several months or so, we open it up for enrollment. And it is an online program. It's not something you have to go anywhere. You have to go to the driving range, but you don't have to come to Orlando or anything to do it. It's just an online program. And the reason why we can't offer it all the time is because it includes access to a Facebook group. And we can only have so many people in the Facebook group at a time. For me to be able to handle it, I'm the kind of the man that mans the Facebook group and handles all the questions and comments and swing videos in there. So in order for me to handle it, we can only have so many in there. So that's why it's kind of limited. But whenever we open up spots, be on the lookout in your email, because we'll send out an email if you're interested in doing that. But we get a lot of great improvement from that course. All right. We got about 23 minutes left here. Let's see if we got any new questions. All right, no new questions yet. So, so if you got any questions, now's a great time to ask. If not, no big deal. Let's see here if we got anything else we can kind of talk about. All right, so we got a question here. It says, how do I get more lag in my swing? So part of it kind of starts in the takeaway. So if we hinge the club up very quickly, you may have heard us recommend taking a wide takeaway, right? And the reason is we want to take a wide takeaway. And this is one of the drills. It's actually from the power turn course. It's not even in the lag course. But we want you to take a wide takeaway, because if we start to hinge the club very early, the moment we essentially fully hinge the club is the moment we want to unhinge it, right? So if we're hinging it very, very early, we're going to tend to unhinge it very early. So if you're already kind of hinging it a lot, then what's going to tend to happen is when you get up to the top, you're just going to start to throw that club out. When ideally what we would want for lag is we want to have this club, we want to get room for the club to lag. So we don't want the club to hinge up too early, because then I won't be able to create as much lag in my downswing. Ideally, what I'd want to have my maximum lag at this lead arm parallel position, or maybe even a little bit later, right? So that would kind of be the first thing in the power turn course. I believe it's in level 1, the wide takeaway drill. That's what I'd recommend doing. So just as a generality, what I like to see when the club is parallel to the ground, I like to see the hands on the other side of the body, completely clear of the body. If we're hinging it up early, then you can see here, my hands are not outside my body and my club is parallel, right? Or past parallel here. So I would want my hands to be more like this to have kind of more of a wider takeaway. So that would kind of be the first part. The second part is to make sure that we have a good grip, right? If we're holding the club in a way that doesn't really allow us to create much lag, then you're just not going to. So when you're gripping the club, you want to make sure that you are gripping it a little bit in the hands and a little bit in the fingers, right? So generally what I like to see is I like to see the club go through under the base of the pointer and above the base of the pinky. So you can see that would be like that right there. So if I have it all in my fingers, right, I might be able to create a lot of lag, right? But the problem is that I'm just not going to have a very secure grip because I'm going to end up what's called like a long thumb. And that club's just not, there's too many gaps and the club's just going to want to move around. I'm not going to have, a very secure grip. And then if I have it too much in my hands, I'm just not going to be able to, if I have it too much in my palm, I'm just not going to be able to create that lag. Like put the club through kind of the lifeline of your hand like that and grip it. And again, when you do that, you're going to have gapping and stuff everywhere. And then try to create lag. Like it's just not going to happen, right? So we want a little bit in the fingers, a little bit in the hands, right? If I have it there, I'm going to have that short thumb. I'm going to have no gaps. I'm going to have a nice secure grip. And now you can see I can create lag with that kind of position. So the grip definitely has a big part of it. We also want to make sure that our wrists are nice and supple, right? If I'm really keeping my wrist stiff, right, I'm just not going to be able to create lag. I want to let the momentum of the club create that lag. And in the first drill or the first drills of the top speed lag course, Clay talks about getting that speed trail. So basically having the momentum of the club create the lag with the change in direction of the body. So if I hold this club like this with a good grip and I have a nice loose wrist, if I shift this way, the club will go that way. And then as the club's going that way, I'm going to shift that way. And you can see how that creates lag, right? So you can kind of go like this, right? And you can see that's essentially how lag is created, right? It's a change of direction. I want to have nice supple rips, good grip, but that allows me, that change of direction allows me to create lag. Now you can bring that up to longer swings, right? And just, I'm not going to bring it up to all the way like a full swing, but because, I have this glass behind me, I don't want to hit it in walls, but that's basically how we want to create lag is have a good grip, have nice, loose and supple wrists, and use the change direction of my body to be able to create it. So these are all things that are talked about in the top speed golf system. So if you struggle with lag, I would highly recommend working through the top speed golf system. Make sure that your stable and fluid spine's in a good spot. That's the first piece. The second piece is the power turn. And in there, you're going to work on a nice wide takeaway. So that way you're not hinging the club up too early. And then in the top speed lag course, that's where we get into more specific lag drills, right? And that first one, which is the lag progression, is what I'm talking about there. It's a 2-part video where you start out kind of getting the feel for that speed trail. And then you kind of, in the next video, you kind of start out with some half swings, getting that same kind of speed trail feeling with the ball. So we want to make sure that we get a nice change in direction with our weight shift, right? Because if I don't get a change of direction, meaning I'm not starting to move into my lead side as I'm getting up to the top, I'm going to have a hard time creating lag because I'm not getting that change of direction that will naturally kind of create that lag, right? So that's what's gone over in there. So that's what I highly recommend you do. Make sure your grip's good. Make sure your wrists are nice and loose. Make sure that you got that you get that feeling of that nice change of direction. And to work on that, I would go to the top speed lag drill. And to get to the top speed lag course, to get to that course, all you have to do is click the instruction tab that's at the top of the screen there. And then from the drop down, you'll select the top speed golf system. And then you can select the top speed lag course from there. But like I said, I would make sure that you've gone through, because the stable fluid spine and the power turn, those are prerequisites for that course. So you either need to work through level 1 of each of those and then go to the top speed lag, or work completely through both of those and then go to the top speed lag. There's 2 ways you can kind of go through it there. All right. Let's keep going. Let's see if we got any new questions here. All right, no new questions. All right, then let's keep talking about some golf topics then. All right, so we got a question here. It says, how do you read greens? All right, so let's talk about that. Grab a putter here. So kind of go through kind of my routine of what I do. So first and foremost, I'm already kind of trying to read the green. If I'm not distracting, oftentimes you're playing golf with a buddy and you guys might be in conversation or something like that, and it's more casual or whatever. But if I'm in a tournament and I'm really just focused on like, hey, I want to perform as well as possible, I'm actually kind of reading the green as I'm walking up to the green or getting up to the green. I'm looking at the overall kind of slope and everything of the green as I'm getting up to it. So that'd kind of be the first part. Once I get on the green, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark my ball, and then I'm going to get as I start cleaning the ball, right? I'm going to get 10, 20 feet behind the ball. I'm going to try to get as low as I can. As I get older, it gets a little bit more difficult to get really, really low. But I'm going to try to get as low as I can. I'm going to try to look at the overall slope, see what I can see from behind, right? And again, I want to really focus on the area that's between the ball and the hole. I know that may seem obvious, but oftentimes you can kind of get tricked by what you may be seeing beyond the hole. And obviously that's not really important. What's beyond the hole. It's just kind of what's up to the hole. So yeah, try not to get tricked by that. Be aware that you're just kind of looking from between the ball and the hole. Once I've kind of done that, by that time I've kind of gotten this ball nice and clean. I'm gonna put the ball back down, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk the perimeter of the hole. And this is where I do a majority of my green reading. And this is just me personally. You might get a little bit more from different things, right? So you might get a lot more from looking at it. I don't, oftentimes, what I see is kind of tricking me sometimes, because sometimes I'll see something and then I'll actually walk and feel in my feet. I'll feel something completely different. And I trust my feet and what I'm feeling in my feet a lot more than what I'm seeing with my eyes. But in your experience, you might find it to be different for you. So everybody's going to be a little bit different in that regard. So what I'm going to do is get that ball out of the way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk the perimeter of this putt. So I'm going to walk up and around the hole and come back. And as I'm doing that, what I'm doing is I'm feeling in my feet. Is this uphill? Is it downhill? Is it side slope? What way is it breaking? Right. I'm also looking at kind of the line of my putt and seeing, okay, is there debris? Is there spike marks? Are there divots? Right. And I'm going to fix those things as I go along. The other thing that walking the perimeter of the putt does is it helps you get a much better feel for the length of the putt. Now, obviously, this is a shorter putt. This is much more important for like longer putts, like 20, 30, 40, 50-foot putts. I can't tell you how many times, I was lazy, and didn't walk the perimeter of the hole. And I hit a putt and I leave it, 8 feet short. And then you get up to it and it's like, oh man, this putt was a lot longer than I thought it was. Or, oh, wow, I didn't realize this putt was uphill. Right. And, I'm sure that's happened to you a few times as well. So that's why, if I'm going for performance here, I want to play my best. I'm going to walk the perimeter of the hole. It doesn't really take that much time. Also, if you're doing it if you're playing with other people, you're doing it while everyone else is doing their thing too. So walk the perimeter of the hole. Obviously, be aware of where other people's balls are and all that stuff. But I'm going to walk the perimeter around. I'm also going to be looking at the hole to kind of see the direction of the grain. So when you look at the hole, there's typically going to be a smooth side, a smooth cut side, and then there's going to be a side that looks a little more jagged and rough. The side that's more jagged and rough, that's the direction it's going. So let's say the hole is like this, and my right hand is really, really finely cut, and then my left hand, the left hand part of the cup is really jagged. the grain is going that way, right? Because the grain is kind of going like this, right? That's why this is all jagged and why this is nice and finely cut. Now, what I have found in my experience is that right to left, if you have a grain that's like a cross grain, I haven't found that it really makes that much of a difference in the break of the putt. In my experience, I don't really put much weight into that. But if it's with the grain, if you're with the grain or against the grain, I have found that does make a little bit of a difference. So if let's say I have a downhill putt and it's with the grain, that putt is going to be fast. It's going to be much faster than what you probably think, right? So I'm putting that into account of what I'm doing here. If it's downhill and it's into the grain, it may not be as fast as what you think. If you're uphill into the grain, that putt's going to be super slow, right? So though when you're into the grain or with the grain, that's what I found. It can make a little bit of a difference. It doesn't make a huge difference, but you do have to play it a little bit from what I have found. So again, I've walked the perimeter of the hole, and now I've made I've taken in all the information. I'm also taking in how wet it is. Like if it's wet, obviously it's gonna be slower. If it's really dry and crispy, right, it's gonna go faster. That's why a lot of times, the U.S. Open, right, when you get in the afternoon, those greens are really fast, and if it's a really hot sunny day, they kind of get baked a little bit and they become faster as the day goes on, even though technically the grass is growing a little bit more, but because they're kind of getting baked and a little bit more crispy, right, and they're getting firmed up as well, they may be a little bit faster. So that can definitely play a role. If you're playing kind of a little bit of a dewy green in the morning versus a crispy green in the afternoon, it's definitely going to be faster in the afternoon. So wind also plays a role. If you have a strong wind and you have faster greens, it's definitely going to play a role. So you want to factor that in. So once I've kind of taken in all this information, now I'm going to basically kind of get behind this putt, and usually I'm getting it behind this putt a little bit more than this. I'll probably stand 5, 6 feet behind. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to visualize the putt, right? I'm going to, based on all the information I've taken in from looking at it from a distance, then looking at it from low and behind the ball, looking at it or feeling in my feet what's going on, looking at the grain, taking in the wind, taking in the surface. Is it crispy or wet or whatever? Taking in all this information, and now I'm going to make as educated of a guess as I possibly can. You're always going to be guessing. You're never really going to know. It's an educated guess, and it's just a matter of getting better at making a better guess. That's really what it comes down to get good at reading greens. So I will play kind of like a movie, a visualization in my mind, and I'm going to see kind of my start line. Now, for longer putts, I like to use intermediate targets because it's hard for me. I have found that it is hard for me to kind of line up with a line that's very, very far away. So what I'll do is I'll kind of get behind if it's a longer putt, and I'll use my putter here. So I want to start it on this line, and then I try to find some sort of intermediate target, and then I will line up my putter with that, and then I'll get in my setup, and then I'll look at the hole, right? So on shorter putts, I'm not going to do that. But if I feel like I'm going to have a hard time lining up with it, I'll choose an intermediate target. And sometimes if I'm having a really hard time lining up with the putts in general, I might choose an intermediate target even for like an 8-foot putt if I'm really having trouble with it. So that's kind of a day-to-day thing, but that's something that I may do as well. So once I've kind of got that in my mind, I'm going to get set up here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do exactly what Tiger's dad told him to do. It's one of my favorite things that he told him to do. It's very, very simple. He said, putt to the picture. So what that means is I made this visualization in my mind of what was going to happen, right? And now I'm just going to make the putt that matches the picture in my mind, right? So I'm going to putt to the picture, right? And, you know, you may have learned nothing, from this. You might be thinking, well, I do this all the time and I can't read a green to save my life. Well, that just means that you got to get reps in, right? So what I would recommend that you do is you grab one ball and go to a hole and just give yourself a putt. Just throw it down and act like it's a putt, and or act like it's a normal putt on the course, right? And go through your routine and putt it, right? Then go grab your ball, go to a different hole, do a completely different distance, and keep doing that. Do it over and over and over again. You will get better at reading greens if you do that. It's just a matter of putting in the reps, getting comfortable. How do you think I learned that I trust what I feel in my feet a lot more than what I see with my eyes, right? That's through repetition and practicing and realizing, I hit a putt. Maybe I hit one and I was like, man, it really looks like it breaks right. And then I stand over and it's like, man, it feels like it's dead straight in my feet. Like I don't feel any slope in my feet. And then you putt it and it's dead straight, right? And it's like, well, and that happens over and over and over again, right? You're gonna trust your feet a little bit more. Now you may find that you felt in your feet one thing, and then you saw one thing, and then that happens over and over. So that's what it comes down to. Put in the reps, do exactly that, simulate what happens on the golf course, go to a different hole, different length putt every single time, and just practice it over and over. Practice the routine over and over and over again. You stick to that, you will get better at reading putts. It just takes practice, and I would like to think that I'm a solid green reader, but I can tell you right now, I'm not as good as probably any pro at reading greens, because they probably practiced it a lot more than I do. But that's what I would recommend doing if you want to work on reading greens. All right, we got a few more minutes left here. Let's see if we got any new questions. All right, no new questions at the moment. Might be time to wrap up. All right, since we don't really have any new questions, I'll give you another minute here to ask one, and then I'll wrap up. No worries if you don't have any questions. Give you a little bit longer here. All right, we'll go ahead and wrap it up right there then. Thanks, everyone, for joining me. We'll be back here Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Everybody have a great rest of your day, great rest of your weekend, and I will talk to you next time.